Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Couper Moorhead, and welcome back to After the Buzzer, where we are talking about the Miami Heat's 136-100 loss to the Utah Jazz. Not Miami's best night, obviously. That could have gone better. But no team is immune to nights like this. You can't pretend like you're better than them. Sometimes you just got to take a night and get beat. And that's what they did. They got beat. The Heat were up 9-1 early, and then it was all Utah from there. So we'll have a little bit to talk about. No table of contents tonight. Let's just get all the way through it. Just for for a little history, for fun, since 1995-96, when Pat Riley joined the franchise, this was just Miami's 10th loss ever by 36 points. That puts them at number 23 in the league, tied with Milwaukee for fewest number of losses. The most is Portland with 27 during that stretch, losses by 36 points, and the fewest, as much as some of you might not want to hear this, the fewest is Boston with 4. So, look, the Heat finished with an offensive rating of 97.1, their third lowest offensive rating this season, and that comes on a night when you're playing the Utah Jazz, which came into the night ranked number 30 in the NBA defensively in defensive rating. Again, not ideal by any sense of the word. And, Utah put up an offensive rating of 132, which was the third highest allowed by the Heat this season. So, both ends of the court really wasn't a whole lot of positives to glean for the most part. Second-year player Bryce Sensabaugh for Utah off the bench set a career high with 34. His previous high was 22. He hit a career high 7 threes. Bam and Tyler combined for 4 of 18 shooting. Bam didn't make a shot. Tyler was missing some wide open ones that he's hit all year. 8 players on the Heat were -10 and plus-minus or worse. It was just that kind of game. Nothing was going right. And you're going to have one or two of those a year. Obviously, you wish you could push it into a corner of your mind fortress and forget about it. But these guys, this is their job. If you have a bad project, something that doesn't go to your standards in your job, most of the time you don't get to just forget about it. You have to talk about it with your boss or with your peers and review it and see what needs to change for the next project so that the same thing doesn't happen. The players have to do that too. I asked Tyler after the game, do you revisit games like this? And he said, yeah, it's not fun, but there's something to learn from every game. So he's going to go watch the tape, see what he can glean from it. And for Tyler, there was actually stuff on the tape because what was interesting tonight was the Jazz blitzed Tyler's pick and rolls 8 times tonight. Now, if you watched our last video, we talked a little bit about Tyler drawing 2 to the ball because Atlanta set a season high with 12 blitzes against Tyler last weekend. So, and then Houston, the game after that, had sent some straight doubles towards Hero, especially late in that game. So this might be a bit of a trend. Again, these could be isolated things against specific defensive-minded coaches and their strategies, but twice in the span of a week, basically now, Tyler Hero has seen more blitzes than he has at any game the rest of the year. It's something to keep an eye on, and I'm sure Tyler will see that on the film. Take out all the negative, like the rhythm, how little of it there was tonight. There just wasn't much flow. Obviously, the Heat were not playing their game, and they got out of it the more the game went on because, when certain things aren't going right, they can tend to snowball on a night like this, and that's really what happened. But just consider the basic numbers here for a second. The Heat shot 25% on 35 threes. The Utah Jazz shot 41% on 46 threes. Not necessarily ideal, but in NBA history, when one team has shot 26% or worse on 35 threes, the other team shot 40% or better on at least 35 attempts, there have been 133 of those games, right, when there was that big of a differential split in the three-point percentages on the same volume. Of those 133 games, you know how many teams won? when they were the team shooting 26% or worse? 5 times. So you're already, even if everything else had been going well for the Heat and it was just a pure variance night from 3, you're still, trying to ice skate uphill, so to speak. And on top of that, Utah is a good offensive rebounding team. How many teams of those 133 games shot that poorly and also gave up 16 offensive rebounds? How many teams have won that game? Goose egg. So if the Heat had won this game statistically, it would have been the first time in NBA history that a team had had those numbers and still managed to win. That's the kind of night it was. A couple good things. Look, Eric Spoelstra played a lot of the younger guys. Keshad Johnson got rotation minutes. Khalil Ware got full rotation minutes. Josh Christopher got in the game. Nikola Jovic was starting. And that's exciting for fans, right? You want to see young guys get out there and explore their games. And on a night like this, especially when the game is mostly lopsided for the second quarter on, especially almost all of the second half, then young players get a chance to kind of express their potential because there's freedom afforded to them in a game like this. Not that you ever want to be down by that much. Sometimes you're up by that much. But it just gives them kind of a free place to play on an NBA court to see, what they can do. And to be fair, Utah was playing some of their guys late in the game, so it was like real competition. But the flip side of that is it's not always going to be sunshine and roses with youth. Part of the playing youth is that you also have to live with youthful mistakes, which is something that Utah, for example, Miami's opponent, has dealt with this season as they're bringing along their young guys. You deal with some youthful mistakes. So there were moments where hit a couple threes. Josh Christopher had a nice take to the rim. Keshad Johnson is still as athletic as all get out, and that shows up on the court. But they lost their minutes too, because you still have to learn how to play the NBA game, and that's okay. That comes with being young and inexperienced. It's just we have to acknowledge that it's not all, oh, man, that's a great flash of potential. That's awesome. That's what he's going to do next week. No, sometimes, you're playing against the Indiana Pacers and these young guys make a nice run at the end of the game that make you feel good. Sometimes it's a game like this and there's still some rough spots. That's okay. That's what the NBA developmental timeline for most players is. It's going to happen like that. Some good minutes for Jovic, though. Went 3 of 5 from 3, was really the only person hitting any shots early in the early stages of the game. The shot's important for Jovic. As for most players these days, your outside shot will determine to some degree your viability as an NBA player, depending on the rest of your skill set. But Jovic, for his part, he has size, and you can clearly see, and we talked about this last video too, he's been posting up some. First play tonight, they designed a set to get Jovic a mismatch, and he gets in the post and he's backing down a point guard, and then he kicks out to a 3 when the defense tilted towards him. So he had some moments tonight where he's getting downhill, getting a guy on his shoulder, taking contact 1, 2, 3 times on his way to the rim. That's really nice to see. The next steps after this for him will be learning what to do in those intermediate ranges when, you get downhill, but then you get stood up by a good defender or help comes, and you don't always have a lot of space in those scenarios. So he has the vision, he has the playmaking vision, but sometimes the play isn't right there to make, and you got to figure out what is your next step as a scorer. When you're driving, you got the ball in the hands. Is it a mid-range pull-up? Is it a spin move? Is it some kind of fake? Is it come with footwork? That'll come for Jovic. The key part is you can't learn how to do that kind of thing unless you're getting downhill in the first place, and he's been clearly trying to do that. So that was nice to see for Jovic. Really the only bright spot on an otherwise long night. It was a long night for the Heat. It happens. They move on. They start on a 6-game road trip soon, and we'll see where they go from here. But for now, this has been After the Buzzer. I'm Couper Moorhead, and I will see you next time. Take care.